Welcome, welcome, welcome. This week in HIM250 preparation for the Certified Inpatient Coder exam from AAPC and preparation for your new career because you're getting ready to graduate. Hot diggity. All right, so this week we're going to talk about documentation and what you need to know as a coder with regard to documentation is that asking questions does not make you look stupid. The exact opposite. Okay. The fact is, the law requires you to query the physician, and that's the fancy schmancy word for ask. It requires you to discuss with the physician who wrote or created the documentation, the provider, I should say, if there is missing or incomplete information, ambiguous or inconsistent information, or contradictory information. You are not questioning the provider's diagnosis, but what you need to remember is that when they go to medical school, they are not taught about coding, and they don't know what details you need to determine a specific code. They just write their documentation for continuity of care, and they don't realize that you need to know right or left. Now, something like laterality is important, and generally physicians are trained to include that. Okay, but there are going to be other details that may be missing as you go through the documentation, especially because each year the code sets are updated and require more and more detail. And that is very important for us in research. It is important for us in reimbursement. It is important to continuity of care. It's okay. We are a team with the healthcare providers. So if you find that you get to code and you only have information to go to an unspecified diagnosis code, for example, because the documentation says the patient has a fractured ulna, but it doesn't say what type of fracture. You need to know what specific type of fracture in order to assign a proper code. Now, remember, unspecified, because I've heard this question many times. Well, if it's wrong to report an unspecified code, why do they have them in the code set? Well, I'm here to explain it. It's there as a just in case CYA. You never know what's going to happen between this year and next year. Okay. However, you should always avoid reporting an unspecified code whenever possible, because the third-party payer is not going to appreciate the fact that a physician has identified a fractured ulna but doesn't know what type of fracture it is. Right? That's ridiculous. That is something that they learned in medical school. Okay. They just didn't realize you needed to know it. So you have to query and ask them to complete the information in the medical record so you can then go back to the medical record and get the details and report a complete code. Okay. Ambiguous or inconsistent information in the patient record. So, for example, the procedure notes state a single lead pacemaker was inserted, However, the equipment list states the pacemaker was dual lead, which is again why you need to read the entire patient report. Okay, you need to look at all the pieces of information in there, not just the little encounter note or procedure note or op note. This is your job. We work with the physicians. We are the backup. We are there to say, oh, we need these details. And you know what? The next physician, with regard to continuity of care, needs these details as well. Now, again, querying is not challenging. You're not saying, well, doctor, what, you don't know what the heck you put in this patient, single lead or dual lead? Come on, you got to tell us what you did. We need the truth. You can't handle the truth. Okay. The fact is that it needs to be there and it's your job to catch it. And then ask the physician to complete the information, correct the information. The last general situation where you would have to query is contradictory information. So the notes, for example, in the first paragraph say the patient denies any cough or chest congestion. However, the last paragraph states the patient was prescribed Tessalon, which is a cough suppressant. So if the patient doesn't have a cough, why would you? Okay, so that doesn't make sense. You have to query and say, did the patient have a cough or did the patient not have a cough? Was this maybe accidentally copied and pasted from a different patient? Because that sometimes happens. Now that we have electronic records, there are some that permit copying and pasting, although it is frowned upon, and this is exactly why, okay? I promise you, I was reviewing physician's notes for an encounter, and it stated that the patient was an 8-year-old boy. And then in the observation, it was a soap note. So in the observation, it said the patient denies pregnancy or denies knowing about any pregnancy. So an 8-year-old boy being could the boy be pregnant or not? No, that doesn't make any sense. You see, I kind of lulled you into the soft and then I spoke you up. Okay, because this is your job. This is part of your job. Now, I want you to know that I understand. I get afraid to ask questions as well. Okay, I do. And it's really weird because I think that asking is one of the most important things that you can do as a professional. All right. If your boss asks you to do something, if you don't understand an assignment in school that you're getting a grade on, or just you're using to learn, the fact is if you don't understand something, you have to ask. Otherwise, you increase your chances of doing it wrong. Now, in school, that's going to negatively impact your grade, but in real life, it not only will negatively impact the patient and the facility, it could get you in big water if you commit fraud and you didn't even know it. Okay? This is your job, accuracy to the nth power. Okay? All right. So we want to always make sure that we are asking in a legal way. And the good news is that the legal query protects you from coming off as if you were telling the doctor he was wrong or she was wrong and you are right and you're an idiot. Okay, we never, even if you think that, you never want to come across that way. And you know what? Most of the time they went to medical school. We didn't. They know something we don't know. The problem is we need to know and we need them to document it. Piece of cake time. Okay. So you don't want to ever ask them in a way that will influence an answer. And you know that you can ask a question where you can influence the answer. So for example, you're talking to your child and you say, "You're the only one here. Did you eat the cake?" We already know that the kid's going to say no, but the real answer is yes. The point is, you do not know what the answer should be. And even if you do know what the answer should be, you have to make sure you ask questions in a non-leading manner. Open-ended questions, and I find the easiest way to do this is provide a multiple choice question for the physician. Okay, you can use fill in the blank. That's fine as long as you don't lead. So let's look at some examples. Okay. Dr. Osage saw Jose Ramirez and documented him to have a displaced fracture of the metatarsal bone of the right foot. Well, that sounds very complete, doesn't it? Okay. After rereading the op notes again and reviewing the entire patient record, you discover that the detail of which specific bone was fractured was missing. Remember, there are 5 metatarsal bones. And as you look at the codes and see, sometimes you don't even realize that you need that information until you get to looking it up in the coding manual, that this is not one code. Displaced fracture, good, we know what kind of fracture it is. We know it's the right foot. But metatarsal bone, you have 5 of those. Which one? So you have to ask. So an open-ended question would be, Dr. Osage, which metatarsal bone was fractured? Or you could make it multiple choice and say which metatarsal bone was fractured first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay? Easy peasy. But you see how you are not putting your knowledge in there. What you are doing is you are respectfully asking Dr. Osage for this particular detail, which you need in order to report this accurately. Okay? Piece of cake. Now, typically, whatever facility you go to work in, especially if it's a hospital, they will have a query process that already exists. All right? But you have to make sure that when you are querying the physician, you clue them in as to who you're talking about. Okay? So what you want to make sure you do is you want to say, Dr. Osage, R-E colon, this is about Jose Ramirez. You put the medical record number, you put the date that Dr. Osage cared for this patient. And now, okay, now I know what you're talking about. Now I can clearly find the answer that you're looking for. Okay. And I'll give you another example from school. Okay. I teach several classes. And you would be amazed at how many times I get an email from a student who never identifies which course they're in. They'll say, "Oh, I missed the quiz," but it doesn't say which quiz. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, depending upon what kind of mood I'm in, I may go hunt this student down myself, or I may reply and say, "I would be happy to help you. Just tell me which class you're in, which quiz you're talking about." Okay. Well, physicians are more likely to be too busy. And remember, they could see 100 patients a week, depending upon what they do and where they are and stuff like that. Okay. But even if it's 20 patients a week, and you're probably talking about a patient they saw last week, you expect them to remember every little detail? Not going to happen. So you have to be most helpful. You lead this doctor directly to this patient, this specific patient on this specific day, because maybe Jose Ramirez has been this doctor's patient for the last 12 years. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. My head is already in the procedure I'm about to do on Mr. Cohen. All right. So this is what I'm saying. And I want you to start practicing in all the emails that you do, including to your instructors. Okay, because that will get you in the habit of being precise, being exact, saving everybody's time, because you already have this information in front of you when you're trying to code it. So why are you going to go make me look for it? Exactly. Okay, so not only is this the proper and professional way to behave, but it's respectful to the doctor. And that will more likely get you a faster answer so you can then go back, find the correct code, and get this claim on its way, close that out, and move on. Okay? It's as easy as that. If you have a question, ask it. Because when you don't ask, you may end up assuming, we already know about assume, right? Assume bad. In healthcare, assume dangerous. Assume illegal. Assume no bueno. Okay? And why would you assume when you can ask? It makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. Work smarter, not harder, and certainly not illegally. Okay, so as you are going through the documentation and you are taking your notes on your scratch paper so that you can accurately report these diagnoses and these procedures, whether inpatient or outpatient, it does not matter. You cannot assume, you cannot fill in your own knowledge. Even if it's your best friend or your sister or your brother is the patient and you know exactly, nope, 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 illegal. Because then if there's an audit, they go back into the record and they say, but there's no documentation of which metatarsal bone this was. So what is this a fraudulent claim? Oh no, that's my brother. Well, that's not legal. And what's the word? What's the saying that you have heard since your first day of coding class, right? If it's not documented, it didn't happen. If it didn't happen, you cannot code it. And that's what it's all about. Behave professionally, behave respectfully, but do your job properly. Piece of cake, right? All right, your reading for this week is this a coincidence? Chapter 4, documentation and coding stand. No, it's not a coincidence. Okay, accurate coding processes, diagnosis, procedure, ancillary services. Remember ancillary services, x-ray lab, okay? And querying the physician when necessary. Seriously. Now, remember, you still have to read through the whole entire patient record. That's part of your job too. So you want to do that before you query because you don't want anybody to say to you, well, the answer is right here on the second page. Use your finger when reading those long patient records because seriously, that will help. That's a physiological fact, okay? You point to the word and your eye will send that one word up through your optic nerve into your brain, and your brain can decipher the meaning one word at a time, as opposed to looking at the whole thing and having all those words go up your optic nerve. It's like rush hour on the interstate. You can't move but one at a time. Okay, seriously. And you carry your fingers with you wherever you go, pretty much. Okay, all right. Chapter quiz. Please don't use your textbooks. Really check your knowledge. Remember, You're preparing to sit for a certification exam, and the certification exam will not permit you to have that textbook with you. So now is where we want to find any knowledge gaps so you can fill them in before you sit for the exam and increase your opportunity to pass. That's what we want. Yepper, yepper. Next, analyze what you got wrong, and seriously analyze what you got wrong. Why was it wrong? Why is the correct answer correct? Don't just say, well, I thought it was the wrong answer. That's not an analysis. This has great value to you. This is so important to your progress. You're increasing your knowledge. You're increasing your professional capabilities, because now it's just your grade. But once you graduate and you get on the job, you're going to have people's lives in your hand. Seriously. And if you have a question, ask me. Email me. Email me. You have additional stuff. The Medicare Learning Network is fabulous. And it's written pretty plainly. Okay. Evaluation and management services. Now, yes, that's a CPT thing. I know that. But remember, we have major changes for 2023 in CPT. It does not affect ICD-10 PCS, but you want to be on top of things with regard to the way the documentation may read and with regard to the way it needs to get interpreted, the way your brain, it's extra critical thinking for your brain. Okay. And remember, every day, 7 days a week, rain or shine, I am here. I promise you a response within 24 hours. Whatever your question is, there are no stupid questions. I promise you. The stupid question is the one that does not get asked. I'm not kidding around. Okay. All right, then. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, week. I'm here for you as you need me. Let's get you all ready to pass this exam. Yo!